Awesome. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Logan.
I appreciate you coming on the podcast and helping me on this journey. It's been really fun so far. Learning the podcast and talking with people like you.
Oh, amazing! You're doing like great work, at least on the front. That we need more content up, like where people are actually having two-way dialogue around, like various different persons you brought in your podcast, right? Sid, I was the one with Sid, one with Laura, so super excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it's there's some good conversations, but it's more, I would say, like around on the outside and people that don't necessarily have all the information on the inside or kind of know from the building perspective. So yeah, once again, thank you. Maybe we could just start off the conversation on a little bit of your background, how you got into tech and how you got into crypto.
Yeah, awesome. So Sam came from Nepal 4.5 years ago.
Wow.
Right. So pretty interesting story about Nepal was like when I was born, there was the second civil war going on.
Okay.
So like up until I was like 12, 13 years old, like I have no idea like how computers look like, right?
Yeah.
But I somehow saw them, and like I got lucky because I went to this school where they had like it was English school and they had computers, and surprisingly they taught like anyone above sixth graders how to write code in BASIC.
Really?
Yeah, that was very interesting because and I was writing code in Windows 95,
oh, wow.
120 kilobytes RAM, right? On BASIC, and like at some point, like by the end of the year, I was like writing like GUI based code in BASIC. It's easy to write GUI based code in like JS or HTML5, right? But to be able to write in BASIC was definitely an achievement. But I realized I was really good at it because I like instruction sets, and I can like pretty much like follow easily once I like understand the end to end of it. And yeah, I was writing software, so I figured out like that you actually can make money and things like that.
Yeah.
And right around that time, like you have a group of friends who are also into computers, and there was a time like when like 2013, 2014 was when like the Anonymous was pretty big, and like going down that rabbit hole, somehow I got introduced to like Bitcoin white paper, and I read it once. And like, cause one of my friends showed it, like, he was talking about like Bitcoin and like, money being in your wallet. And I'm like, what do you mean by like digital money in your wallet? Like,
yeah.
Fit, right? And read the whole thing, and I was like, wow, it makes no sense, right? I was like, okay, like this is so I have this bunch of numbers, and you have a bunch of numbers, and there's value because both of us believe that there's a value. That made no sense because I'm from Nepal, right? Like there was not even digital banks back then.
This was in 2013?
2013, 2014.
Oh, wow.
Right. And right after that, like, there was a big earthquake in Nepal. And like my whole trajectory of life changed because I took 2 years off trying to start a company and things like that. And that was a time like when, someone actually introduced me to Bitcoin and received first few Satoshis of my life. And that just like kind of changed because in Nepal, you don't have banks for anyone younger than 18 years old, right? You have to have your bank account through your parents, and there's no digital bank.
Wow.
Right. And so, and not like unlike America, you don't have cars because you pay 200% taxes. So not many people can afford it. Okay. So you hypothetically, you can have banks, but practically you are not because no one's gonna walk 7 miles to go to a bank, right? So, and lack of access around financial services opened up the world of Bitcoin, and right around that time, Ethereum came out, and read the whole white paper and realized that wow, it actually makes sense. Like 2 years ago, it was not making sense because I was a teenager, and for me, the whole life was just, I don't know, just like reading whatever the stuff that my school teaches, and get a job or something like that, right? That was like my life. And when I was 15, when I actually wanted to be an entrepreneur, and like that, by that time, the world was the world that I saw was much bigger than just like, small village in Nepal.
Yeah.
And that was a time when I was like, oh shit, this is more than just like you and I giving each other a bunch of digits and saying both of us believing in these hypothetical like numbers having a value, right? So yeah, that was like my entry into crypto.
That's insane. That's super insane. That's inspiring. there's a lot of hardship in there, but you're able to identify these potential technology solutions from some of the technology background that you had, and see how you could marry those two together. That's very impressive. Very impressive.
Yeah, like I think like the most interesting part was like, like when you're reading like Bitcoin white paper, right? Like if you're like a teenager, it makes no sense to you, right?
Yeah.
Like you have like things like distributed computer, like the hash powers and all these different things. Like every single word has like 80 pages of like definitions and explanation, and like I had a friend of mine who was really like really into the same stuff that I was into as well, and we used to like just throw ideas back to each other. And the fun thing is both of us are in doing crypto right now, and he actually went to the more like centralized route. He works for like a couple of tech companies as like consultant, like helping them strategize on their like decentralized data like database like solutions and things like that. Nice. And I went to the starting my own protocol route. So
that's insane. So you got into Ethereum at like one time point?
Yeah, it's like 2015, 2016.
Oh,
but
that's super early again. Or did you start building on Ethereum initially?
Yeah, so I think like when smart contract first came out, right, and like right after the whole like the makers hack and things like that, right around that time, because I knew JS like from a pretty like young age. So like when it came out, like building an Ethereum is really easy.
Yeah.
Right. So just like figured out that it's actually a lot easier. And at first, like there was not many like solution that you can imagine, because I don't have a finance background myself. And if you don't have a finance background, and if you think money is just like I put it in my pocket and then I deposit in a bank and I get the money back whenever I need it. If you have that, if that is the only understanding of you for money, then there's little or to nothing you can do, right? So for me, I had like some basic economics understanding, right? Because I used to read a lot of stuff in my high school and things like that, and so try to build things. And right around the makers hack, I was like, oh, what do I think about it, right? And the security and all that kind of stuff. There was a lot of things, but yeah, like that's like when smart contracts started coming out. That was the time when I was like started dabbling around the world of building dApps.
That's nuts. And so were you building during that like 2017 bull market, or did you start going like more hardcore after like 2018, 2019?
So 2017, like second half when I first came here, right? Like that was the height of crypto euphoria, right? I don't think it's a crypto euphoria. It's actually, I call it like crypto enlightenment.
Yeah.
Right? It's like when some like I don't know, like I think it was like Francis Bacon who said like the power of knowledge is not to be whether it's right or wrong, it's rather like how much it empowers you, right?
Yeah.
And in 2017 second half, like you go to a dinner and like one of the first thing you will like somehow talk was around crypto, especially in San Francisco. I don't know, like I'm pretty sure you were right around there at that time.
I was still in the 2017. I was still at university, and my brother was like, "Hey, like look at this crypto stuff." I was like, "Dude, like I'm busy studying like CS, like get away, like I can't look at this." And then it just kept going up, and I finally like started reading enough and just like went like 48 hours down like the white papers and like YouTube. And on the other side, I was just like, holy shit. It was a crazy moment, but no, I wasn't in San Francisco at that time.
And like, so the interesting thing about like San Francisco, like almost all the ICO booms was happening there, right? So they were like, Draper, like, Team Draper was like the first, like big VC that was like adopting crypto. He like, he had this whole setting where like, they invested in quite a lot of crypto deals, and a lot of these like famous crypto VCs right now, they were just getting started, right?
Yeah.
And ICOs was happening everywhere. And I think the first crypto, like 2017 euphoria, or what I call crypto enlightenment, was actually really good because the world wants an economic incentives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you make $100 after investing like $10 on some digital something, right? You don't even need to know. But now that you made $90, you're like, I want to know why I made $90 so that I want to make more of it, right? So it was actually a good thing because like a lot of people didn't know how Ethereum and how smart contract work and how like consensus was achieved in Ethereum distributed computing, but people knew that they could make money.
Yeah.
Hence, people like went down the rabbit hole, and actually was a good thing.
For sure. No, I totally agree. The 2017, there was a lot of lessons, brought a lot of people in the space, and the people that I'd say kept with it through that bear market and kept building and kept learning are now kind of at the forefront of, this bull market, but more so, just having that couple of years of experience now just is definitely showing its fruits of the labor.
Oh yeah, like I, not just the fruit of labor, right? Because crypto is like a global thing, not just thing that happens in a small, like in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
So now what is happening is like you have gone through like a lot of these ups and downs, like price sometime going 40% down in a week and a half or 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that happens in 80 to 90 years in smart, the stocks world, right? So like stock market world, that probably happened in 3 years time.
Oh yeah.
And and if you were like looking at the price looking at the price and in the ecosystem for 3 years, it's like you have the experience and the what is right, like is basically like conviction, as like even like Warren Buffett, whatever Warren Buffett saw in the market in 80, 90 years, you probably saw in 3 years, right? That was of the swings. And now it's like I haven't even checked like the price of like Solana in a while.
No, I think once you actually start focusing on like building the products and what benefits the products provide, then like price becomes a little bit more secondary. I think obviously like price brings people into the space as in 2017, but I'm just more impressed by all the builders and the products. And that's, to me, the biggest differentiation from 2017 with like all the ICOs. Like today is much different. Like there's actually working products.
Oh yeah, exactly. And even the more interesting thing about this now is like even like look at NFTs, right? Like yes, there was like the 2007 CryptoKitties, right? Like which like just like blow up the gas prices, right? But what it did, like that time, people were like, okay, you can make money from NFTs. And in like the last year, like what I said is 2021 to end of 2022, like in end of 2021, that like 365 days period, people went on from like, oh, you can make money from this, buying it, to you can make money from this by creating it. Hence, like people, like you might be a coder, you are creating like you're actually coding it, and now if you're a non-coder, you're actually coming up with ideas for NFTs as well, and it just like adds more and more people to the ecosystem, right? And if there's large enough population into any economic system, all of a sudden it starts to create its own value and its own sets of rules. That's the most exciting part about it.
It's so exciting. I call it like the black hole. Like people approach it from many different angles, either the NFT or DeFi or now gaming. But it all kind of converges on crypto, which is even more wild. But I appreciate that fact because it brings so many different minded individuals all into kind of a shared vision of what this is going to become. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's just I don't know who said it, but like the beast is big enough that everyone can touch it from different places and they will still be able to grab a piece of it, right?
100%.
And you can have your own explanation. It's like the open-ended part of the crypto and DeFi and the Web3 now, right? Is so interesting that everyone can have their own perspective, and there's no one person to be able to say that this is wrong. Like whatever your perspective is wrong. It's like as long as you're building something here and people are using your product, then you can have your own vision on it.
100%. That's awesome. So maybe segue into how you started building your product. And how that journey has been. Yeah,
I think my journey on this product has been like, I don't know, like it's a very like confusing, almost like an arc that is written like like a Token's book, right? What happened was like back in 2017, I was writing because I came from Nepal, right? We didn't have banks, and all of a sudden, there's like 4 banks in front of like my college, and you can go with your ATM, take out the money, and you don't even have to go inside the bank to deposit the money. And I'm like, whoa, right? It was pretty interesting. And then you have internet banking, and then you have Coinbase, and you have all this different thing. And I was like, wow. So at some point in the future, like, you will be able to, have money that can go from your account to the outside world automatically, interact with the outside world economic incentives, follow the set of rules, and come back with its own yield. Like, it's almost like a self-driving money. You know how you have self-driving cars?
Yeah.
I think at some point in the future, you'll have self-driving money.
For sure.
The problem of that was, like, I imagine in the world in which there's no transaction fees.
Yeah.
Right? And then you imagine like the real world where you have 2.9% fees, and you have ACH, and like the no ACH in the weekend, and like all this different thing. And I'm like, well, like the only way of doing this is via smart contract, right? Like the world of self-driving money will come in, where like, you can basically assign your money to this one set of rules that will just like, or the vaults now, right?
Yeah.
And like, I wrote a bunch of these things, and like in my school, and the professor was like, yeah, it makes no sense. And actually, a couple of days ago, I reached out to him, and he's like, yeah, great job. Now it makes a lot of sense.
You're ahead of the time.
I think it was not just ahead of the times. It was just like it kind of didn't make sense on the perspective of his, like, his education, like his education background. His background has been like, money can only be created by the centralized government. Right?
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point.
And I wrote this, and then last year, like, somehow we stumbled back. Some people, like some of us, we stumbled back to the same paper, and we were talking on things that does not make sense. And one of the things that we ended up talking about was payroll, right? Because like you worked at Tesla, and Mr. Musk is pretty nice, and he pays you like $20K a month, and instead of receiving, like, you work for like 15 days and someone pays you in day 17.
Yeah.
And it kind of does not make sense, because Mr. Musk is one of the richest guys in the world, and Tesla has one of the biggest money flow in the world. And somehow they're taking 15 days of line of credit from you at 0% interest rate. That's basically what it is, right?
That's true.
And if you're working in a company, you should be able to have access of your earnings in real time, right? Why that was not happening. And we started researching and realized that it's the systems of the money that is in the real world. It just does not allow you to do it.
Interesting.
You cannot be ACHing in real time, right? Yeah. And then the banks running like specific time frame. You have fees and all that kind of stuff. And we're like, hey, there should be a world in which like you're paid in real time.
Yeah.
And we went like you started researching and realized it's impossible to do this in traditional rails, and you can only do this with smart contract. As I said, like the fun thing for me is like my background actually is in AI. I should write machine learning models, and the other thing was like I used to audit codes with like some of my friends, and since 2017 that was like my side gig, or like that's how I survived my college years, right?
That's awesome.
And so it was like I had only two backgrounds really well, and it kind of made sense for me to start looking and realize that it's not just for the payroll. It also works for token vesting, right? Which is the lifeblood of the digital world. Yeah. And it also works for subscription, right? Like you can let's say you can lease a Tesla, which is basically a subscription, right? Yeah. And you're basically having to pay a lot of money up front, right? Like $500, $600 a month. Yeah. Imagine that subscription can be real time, so that there's your hands are not tied down, right?
Interesting.
So like every second of Tesla you're driving, you're only paying for that second. Or imagine you are in a world in which like Netflix account, right? They charge you like $15 a month. Yeah. 99% of the time, I don't even watch Netflix. Yeah. Right? Like, but they somehow charge it. Imagine only paying for the content that I'm watching, like per the seconds of the content that I'm watching, right? So the idea is to be able to build like a programmatic cash flow or continuous settlement, right? It's a continuous settlement protocol on top of Solana. And the first app we're building ourselves is a payroll app, which is an on-chain payroll app in which an employer can pay an employee in real time. And so that, Tesla could pay you every single second, and you can take that money, put it in different yield vaults and things like that, and have the highest efficiency for the capital that you have earned.
That's awesome. No, that's pretty ingenious. And I haven't even thought too much about all the different use cases that you can do with instant settlement. But yeah, there's a lot. I was curious, like one thing that like I think about a lot, like outside of product, is how do you choose? Like to me, I mean, picking the product is probably one of the most important things as a founder or builder. But then outside of like picking what product to build, how did you choose or come upon like Solana to build this protocol?
Yeah, I think Solana, the earliest experience with Solana was back in 2017. EOS was one of the biggest things, like they raised a bunch of money, and I happened to lose some money myself, right?
Yeah.
And once you lose money, you want to know why you lost money, and you read the entire white paper, and you're like, it kind of makes sense, but like, why didn't it work out?
Yeah.
Right. And right around that same time, a Solana team was based out of San Francisco, and like some people was like, oh yeah, there's another L1 coming out from San Francisco. Actually, there was like two. Near was also around this, around the same place, and so there was like two of them. But like, I somehow found about like Solana from some of the VC who knew like there was like the new L1s coming out, and it's gonna be like it's gonna completely transform how things that like Ethereum was not able to solve. And I was like, well, what it is? And they're like, well, I have no idea. I'll like send you, I'll send you the links of like whatever the documents I can find like in a week or two.
Yeah.
And I read the whole thing, and I was like, makes sense, right? And I was just waiting for their their like token sale. And when 2018 like flash sale happened with on Coinbase, like I just picked whatever the amount of token that I could get on Solana. And
that's nuts.
Once you hold it for a while, you want to know more and more reasons on why it works and why it won't work, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and last year actually, so that was that's how I got into Solana. But last year I was doing a lot of dApps, right? I built early February 2021 an NFT marketplace, did some work there, and right around that time it was like coin toss, I built an Ethereum not because that was the easiest one. It was just like a Solana ecosystem for NFTs was not ready then, right?
Yeah.
We experimented with a lot of things. Like that time I experimented with a lot of things on NFTs, learned it's actually the easiest way of bringing people into crypto, or like the proverbial Web3, right? And then I went on to work on decentralized legal June, where like a bunch of lawyers can come together, because I had way too much legal fees from my previous company.
Okay.
And I was like, wouldn't it be great if there's a bunch of lawyers coming in together, sending their contracts, or uploading their contracts, and they can vote from each other, which one has the most unbiased, from the from the signer and the signee's point of view, right?
Yeah.
And you can come in and buy that, plus you have the automated DocuSign and all that kind of stuff. And at that time, that was the time I researched almost everything on how to build on Solana. And that time there was that was a time when I actually was like, okay, perfect, this is the time to build on Solana.
Yeah.
And what happened was the code was ready in ETH because it's easy to write there, right? And it was always going to deploy in Polygon. But by that time, in my my understanding of Rust was okay, this is it. I have to build on Solana, because the composability, and there's a lot of things that at least on the developer's point of view, right? Yes, it's hard to build on Rust, but if C was the first language, basic, if basic and C was the first language you actually learn, or not Python or JS, you will think that it's easy thing.
Yeah, true.
So I people are oh, building on Solana is hard. I'm like it's actually not building on Solana is hard. It's just that people to have good coding skill on C is hard.
Yeah. There's just so many levels of abstraction now. But yeah, I don't know. People will learn Rust. You picked it up, and if you're a good engineer, I'm pretty confident that people will be able to learn it.
Yeah, and also it's not actually the coding skill; it's actually the problem-solving skill within coding, which is very, very transferable. Yeah. Right. It's oh, I'm not good at C. If someone thinks that they cannot pick up a language in a month, right? It's just it's the problem-solving skill is not up there.
Yeah. No. I totally agree. Huh. That's super interesting. So you were building on doing the NFT marketplaces in early 2021. And then at what time did you start building what you're now working on?
So last year around September was it was kind of easy, because we already had the extraction of all the things that we wanted to do. Uh-huh. And a lot of VC friends in my circle, right? They were great, give you money to be able to kick this off, and started with decent amount of cash flow in the cash in the hand to be able to build this. And we actually had our product out pretty early on, the V1, just for us to visualize on what are the things that are out there in the market, what are the things that are missing parts, right? And how can we achieve the vision of like, be able, imagine like, for us, the vision that we're imagining is like, one day everyone in the world will be paid in real time, right? And how can we make that happen in the next 10 years instead of making it the next 200 years?
Yeah.
Right? Because like at some point in the future, like with the digital economy, right? Like people will be able to be paid instantaneously. That's the fact. Like, it's like, people imagine there will be computers, like, how you will be able to do instant messaging like 200 years ago. And somehow we have it now.
Yeah.
And now, like most of our sci-fi movies shows like instantaneous settlement, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of movies where I watched a movie, like, I don't know which one was it, but like where you were paid in like the seconds, and you can set like transfer seconds from one end to another.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
Yeah, like, and I think like, like that's gonna happen. But our goal was like, how can we make that happen in the next 10 to 20 years of our life?
Yeah.
Like and that's actually always the like interesting part is like, because as a builder, right, like you want to have as ambitious goal as possible, but how can you make it like a practical ambitious goal, right?
Yeah.
So for us, it was like, okay, what can we do to make this product interesting for actual Web3 users as well, right? And so, around November, we had our first product out. We did a hackathon. We had a lot of builders building on top of it, raised another round of capital. We did a token sale. Now we just announced another hackathon. And so, like the ecosystem is growing. People who care about this problem are like growing, right? And I think the first important part about any crypto or DeFi project is like education. How can you convince people that this problem is real, right? And the second is how can you align their incentives? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, and also with crypto kind of being unique from like the community aspect as well, like thinking about them. And you guys did something pretty novel with how you distributed your tokens, correct? Could you like go into that?
Yeah. So like for us, like with our token sale, a lot of project, what like usually like, this is a pretty sad fact in crypto is like we talk about accessibility to the market, providing power to the people, all of those, the first line, like like in every major crypto pitch, right? It's like giving power to the unbanked and all that kind of stuff is there. But the world of fundraising and investment in crypto doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Right. Like you being an investor, that like the seed round happens at X price, the private round happens at 10x that price, or 4 to 10x that price, depending on who led this, like the seed round, right? Yeah. If you know the name, then you are going to pay 10x in the next round. If you don't know the name, you probably are going to pay 4x in the next round. Yeah. And usually those two round happens. So within like 2 to 3 months of those two round, all the all the last round investor gets at least 2 to 3x premium on the public sale. So most of the crypto investment have always been around, like the public sale has always been around giving the unrealized gains to the private investors.
Yeah.
And for us, it kind of made sense because we're not here to do this for 10 days. We're not here to do this for 2 years. We're here, like I'm saying that this is like a 10 to 20 year problem, right?
Yeah.
So if that is the case, then price makes no sense. How can we offer our token as cheap of the price as possible to the mass community? So for us, we offered like, terms of like, if you wanted to, come into our public sale, you could have actually bought token at the same price that last round investor bought. Right. And for us, a lot of people try to do IDO like, in one place, but we actually did IDO in multiple places. We actually did like, Google Trends analysis on where these people are searching these keywords, and, distributed like through SoulStarter, Soulster, Grubber Finance, and Radium, right?
Yeah.
And we basically, and then we did with Republic as well.
Okay.
And so basically distributed token in as many hands as possible. And the idea for us was like, look, if there's like large enough population who actually hold this token, right? Once you are like, as I said, like, once I bought Solana for 3 years, I was just like, how can this be big, right?
Yeah.
What are the things that can happen in this, right? And same thing was going to happen with a lot of people who hold Zebec token now, because either they are the user of the product or someone who cares about the product, right? And aligning incentives with these mass people is always powerful, and also it actually gives you a sense of satisfaction that there are people who actually care about this vision like you as well.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think that's, I mean, it's definitely unique how you approach it, but being able to allow public to come in at the same as the last round valuation, and then also spreading it across as many like token sale platforms or places to buy, specifically like where your users are, is not only unique, but I would say makes your protocol more powerful because you're putting it in the hands of more people.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, if you like, the idea is like, like you heard about Zebec, and if you sometime in future when you like talk about payroll with any one of your friends, somehow you're going to mention about it, right?
Yeah.
And for that to happen, like, how many people talk about payroll? Not many,
Yeah.
right? But how many people do talk about, hey, I just bought this coin that is, that is doing something ABCD, right? Like, I think like another interesting thing that like, crypto and Web3 has allowed you to do is like, or like 10 to 20 years ago, people never had like the dinner table talk was not about like, money, not finance stuff, right? It was always about the movies that you watch or the politics, which is the easiest thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, talking about money and like, various different aspects of money is very interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it is.
So that's why like our token sale is almost like a marketing and a community building exercise for us, right? Like, we had no honest desire for us to make any money from this ideal platform because we already had private investors, right?
Yeah.
And the private market is big enough for us to be able to do this like 5 to 7 more rounds and still be okay, right?
Yeah.
But how can we have 15 to 20,000 people that actually will care about this was public sale, and now we have like a few thousand holders of our token, and the community has grown like 2x. And so yeah, this was a very, very interesting experiment as well, right? And I suggested almost every single project to actually follow, like, there was some stuff that like, that could have done a little bit better on our end. But,
yeah, you always learn it.
Yeah, we always learn it. But I think anyone who's going to do a token sale, I think I highly recommend them to, just do it as the same term as the private like last round, and do it in as like large platform as possible, and have as much of float right off the gate as possible.
No, I think that's amazing. Definitely unique, but I hope it becomes more standard as the industry continues to mature, and we kind of figure out as a collective the best way to build communities. But that's amazing that you've gone to a couple thousand holders supporting your project, and now I'm sure we'll be much more interested. And I mean, one, the incentive aspect, but also just learning how they can help build and provide feedback for the product as well.
Exactly. And at some point, they're going to come to our Telegram or Discord and be like, this button is not working,
Yeah.
Like, I think that's going to be the really interesting part, because they're like, hey, I have a voice in this,
Yeah.
And that's the part that we want as well. It's like, we want community to be able to, like, this is like in last 7 to 10 days, we have like 7 different countries, like, Telegram chat we had to set up.
Wow.
Like, and I go there and like, I don't understand like Vietnamese, or like, like a lot of these different languages that has been there, but it's just like, you just see that if there's like 45 person typing at the same time about your product, and I'm just like, wow, people actually do care about what we're doing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. How like, so over the next like couple years or so, what are you looking forward to most with like the product, and some things that you're looking at from like the community aspect, kind of going forward?
Yeah, I think like for us is like, we want to have 1 million holders of our token, and we want to have the 1 million payroll, like, users of our product, like, 1 million individual lives that are like, getting paid in real time.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the big achievement for us. Like, once we cross that, I think we'll achieve the 1 million on the payroll users before we are able to create 1 million token holders, because it's going to take a while, because Solana adoption is still happening, right? But I think like in next 2 to 3 years that can be done.
100%.
Exactly, sold for life. So yeah, I think that's a big focus, and simultaneously we want to have around like 10,000 active like developers on our ecosystem developing interesting apps on top of it.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so like million, and 10,000. That's the goal.
Nice.
And I think those three things is going to be like the most important thing. And a lot of people think that as a founder you'll care about the how the price, how the token are launched, and all that kind of stuff. For me, it's just like we will just keep on building. We'll keep on doing good things, and at some point you will start reflecting on the price and the community again. We'll people who bought the token at 21 cents will start caring about when it is trading 8 or 10x, and when they join the platform, when they heard about the platform, it was a few thousand users, and now all of a sudden there's 500,000 users. I think it's just gonna get more and more powerful.
Very true. That's awesome. It's a very wild story that you have from, the inception of getting the basics of computers, being able to be in Silicon Valley and kind of be at the forefront of Ethereum and also these new layer ones, to identifying kind of from your childhoods a use case that will actually have meaningful adoption to many people around the world, building that. And now continuing to iterate and bring people on board. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's the most interesting story about the whole thing is when I was born, there was no electricity in my village, right? And it was a couple of months later it came right, and we didn't have TV, right? And at some point we had the black and white TV, and at some point it started becoming color TV, and then at some point we had DVDs where we can watch VCDs was the right thing that time. Then we started watching movies, and then and then all of a sudden at some point we had telephones, and and imagine electricity came in the US 1900s. And computer came in around 1970 to 1980, right? And that all happened in 80, 90 years, right?
Yeah.
For me, that happened in 10 years.
Wow.
Right?
It's a big transformation.
Yeah, and I always tell myself that I was born in the time of Edison.
Yeah.
Right? And I somehow survived to live through the time of Vitalik and Anatoly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Wow. No, it's not only inspiring. I think it should. It's powerful, and I hope I'm inspired, so I hope it inspires others. I think one of the also challenging aspects of the crypto space is, as a founder, just taking care of yourself, managing the team, but managing the protocol, managing the communities, so many different stakeholders pulling you in so many different directions. How do you find kind of managing all those different stakeholders while also feeling good and just managing your day-to-day?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about any founder is or anyone in the world is how do you get what's the locus of your identity, or what gives you some form of power, identity, or whatever that is, right? And and as a builder, right, you always want to surround it around building it, right? And once you do that, all of a sudden it doesn't matter what time of the day it is. It doesn't matter it is rainy or sunny or as long as the internet is good and I'm able to build my product.
Gotta have the good internet.
Yeah, gotta have a good internet, right? If you have that, you're okay with that, right? And the second thing is you got to take care of yourself, right? At least as a builder, right? Go on a run, go on a walk, and those are the basic things. But I think the most important part is when you have a team of people is at the end of the day, even though you are coding to this machine, right? And there's a distributed computing systems that understands nothing but code. At the end of the day, the ones who are using is people.
Yeah.
And the most important thing in the world is people. The one who understand people, are able to do it no matter what.
I like that a lot.
And so that's why it's it's a people thing. You have people, team are people, your investors are people, your stakeholder, every one of them are people at the end of the day. And if you know how to take a good care of them, yes, things are going to mess up every once in a while. There might be a problem with your token sale, or there might be a problem with your product. No matter what happens, at the end of the day, if you know how to do it right, how to take care of people, and just come back and relax and be hey, things happen.
Yeah.
But I it was not my intention to do that, and I'm able to make it right. and nothing is like too hard in the world to like to be not solved, right? Like look at Maker's Hack, right? Like, and now Maker's one of the biggest product in the world.
True.
Right? As long as you keep on doing what you were doing, and the community is going to come back. Because if you are not one of those projects that rugs people and as long as the funds are safer, right? So like if you're not doing any of that stuff, like people are going to come back because people understand builders, right? And the people who, if you are working hard and if you're in your Discord chats, like like 18 hours a day and on all things that you care about is like building it, people using it, and just like going back into the drawing board again and just like making it better and better, right? At some point, like the shift is going to happen, and it's just like, and the best part about this is like asymmetric return, like it starts with one or two people and just keeps on growing, the community grows. And that's the most important thing is like nothing is too hard to like like no matter what happens you will be able to make it as long as you are building it, right? And just go back and just like not be on panic mode.
I love that. I one of my like favorite things recently is just I believe it's like the Rocky quote. It's like it's not how hard you can get hit. It's like how many times you can like actually like get up and just like keep going. And I like how, I mean, not only that, but because you overcome so many different obstacles as a founder, but again, focusing on the people and the people that are using your products, the people on your team, the people in your communities. I very much admire that point of view and that aspect. So I think you're killing it.
Yeah, as I said, like, for us, it's how can we have 1 million people? Like, I want to imagine a world in which like, I go back home in Nepal. Actually, the crazy thing in Nepal, like, crypto is still illegal.
Okay.
Right. But I want to imagine a world in which I can go back and I can see someone being paid in real time there.
Yeah.
And that is not a problem that like, no amount of L1s and no amount of fast transaction can make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually going to be on it's actually going to be on the people that are using it. And at some point, people are going to push this to like more and more countries itself.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the biggest goals is like, how can I have everyone in the world care about this vision of like, being able to make money continuous? Because right now it doesn't make sense. But once everyone in the world is paid continuous, there's no sense of credit. The whole, the internet, like the world system of credit will completely change.
Uh-huh.
Right? Because now you're not paid like once a month or once every 15 days. Your credit rating is like how many, like what, it's going to be like, what you just said, like how much you make every second. That's like based on that, you are actually given a like unique line of credit.
That's super unique. Yeah. I like that.
And that just like, starts like, trickling down, like the bidding auction will start to change. It's not going to be how much I can bid higher between two of us. It's just going to be who has more money per second to go on longer, right? Like if we both of us would start like $1 per second, at one point, either your money is going to dry up first before mine, right? And I think there's going to be new pyramids of like auctions as well.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking forward to that world, and I'm glad you and your team are building it. Maybe just to wrap it up, we've been chatting for almost like 45 minutes. What is kind of like some words of wisdom or just some imparting words for everybody?
Wow. I'm like 23 years old. So.
Then you're fucking killing it, man.
No. I don't know if I'm in a position of my life to actually give like any words of wisdom, but I think the one thing I have learned in my life is like just like just have faith in yourself and keep on building. People like all it takes is like one person to believe in you.
I love that.
And it's just like, if at some point it's going to get better. Like, look at me. Like, I was born in like the middle of nowhere in Nepal. And, like now I work at the same office with like Anatoly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's just like things change. Right. It's like, as I said, like, just be true to yourself. Just keep on keep on working hard. All it takes is this one person, and just your life will move to a completely different trajectory.
Dude, that's awesome. I think that's one of the things that I've been inspired most by the founders that I've been chatting to. They all kind of come back to like that one person, either investor or whether it's themselves or a family member or a certain person in their community that believed in them. And that belief helped them believe even stronger, and they just went for it.
Yeah. It's just like, it's a very powerful thing for people to understand that, it's actually possible.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes this takes some, it's the amount of time that is taken is going to be different, but it's actually possible.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll end it on that. It's possible, and keep building. So thank you very much, Sam. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Logan.
Appreciate it.